From the restricted archives of the Sigillite. Classification: Hereticus Maxima. Reading without sanction is punishable by soul excision. They said it was a star. I saw it with my own eyes, a wound in the void, bleeding light where none should live. It came screaming through the materium, brighter than any nova, its descent traced by the screams of astropaths across half a dozen systems. Then it fell upon the barren world of Electo 4, a world marked for colonization by the Emperor's armies. But nothing survived its coming. The first fleet to investigate was the 8th Expeditionary, commanded by Primarch Perturabu. Their Vox recordings are fragmented, drenched in static and screams. The only clear transmission recovered before their ship vanished was this: "He is not of the warp. He burns without it. Emperor, preserve us, he burns." And then silence. For 3 standard months the region was quarantined. Ships that strayed near Electo 4 reported a presence, impossible, incorruptible, a being that defied every psychic scan, a form that radiated not chaos but purity. And yet those who gazed upon him too long spoke of terror. They say he walked from the crater naked, unarmed, unarmored, yet the soil turned molten beneath his feet. He looked upon the Imperium's banners, the symbols of the Aquila, and asked only one question: "Where am I?" And for that single question, 1,000 men drew weapons. The surface of Electo 4 was wrong. No radiation, no warp echo, no trace of demonic corruption, and yet every machine spirit screamed in fear. Explorators found the crater at dawn cycle. It spanned 10 kilometers wide, the edges fused into black glass. At its heart, a single figure stood, motionless, unblinking, gazing toward the crimson sky as if searching for something beyond it. His body was unmarred, no armor, no scars, only a red sigil scorched into his chest, the stylized shape of an ancient Terran house crest, perhaps, but it glowed faintly, like a dying star. When they approached, their Vox units failed, their minds filled with voices not their own. "He speaks without words," wrote Magos Loran in his final log. "Every fiber of me knows his voice is not born of the immaterium, yet I feel it in my soul, as if he commands gravity itself to listen." And then the servitors began to melt. Witness account: Sergeant Varen, Luna Wolves. "He looked human, but there's no human that makes your heart feel small. He smiled at us, kind almost, and for a moment I forgot what we were. I forgot the wars, the blood, the Emperor. Then he said, 'I heard them crying. I thought this was home.' Captain Terex ordered him to the ground. He didn't move. Terex fired his bolter. The round hit his chest and stopped. Not bounced, not deflected. It just stopped. Then everything exploded. When Perturabu himself arrived, half the world burned. The Primarch, architect of sieges, master of iron and logic, could not explain what he saw. His orbital bombardments could not scar the being. His artillery was as dust against him. Perturabu demanded his name. The being answered softly, "Kal El." The name was recorded. The name was erased. The Emperor's edict. The Sigillites' records speak of the Emperor's wrath, not at Kal-El, but at what he represented. A man who could not be touched by chaos nor corrupted by the warp. A man who could crush Astartes with a thought and yet refuse to kill. Some say the Emperor met him in the silent halls of the Imperial Palace. Others say the meeting never happened, for the Emperor feared what he would see, a reflection of divinity not born from his hand. Final transmission, unauthenticated. He flies now across the void. The stars tremble where he passes. The warp recoils, and every demon screams one word. Krypton. The Emperor had not summoned the High Lords that day. The throne room was silent. Only the golden hum of the Astronomicon burned through the darkness, a heartbeat of the Imperium. They brought him before the master of mankind, bound in chains of psychically tempered adamantium, chains meant to hold daemons. They melted against his skin. He did not resist. He looked upon the Emperor and said quietly, "You're not a god." The Custodes reacted first. Their guardian spears sang with the wrath of 10,000 years of loyalty, but the Emperor raised his hand, and the universe stopped. Time faltered. The air froze. The light dimmed. What passed between them was not spoken. It was felt. The Emperor's mindscape. Inside the Emperor's psychic realm, a domain that devours all mortal will, there was no sound, no space, no matter, only thought and presence. Kal-El stood within it, unafraid. The Emperor studied him, layers of perception stripping flesh from soul, searching for weakness, for connection to the warp. He found none. No demonic link, no psychic echo, no soul signature. Kal-El was impossible. "You are no son of man," the Emperor said. His voice was not sound, but thunder in the marrow of existence. "Nor of any gene, nor of chaos. What are you?" Kal-El's reply cut through the storm. "I am what your people could have been." The Emperor saw visions, worlds bathed in sunlight, men walking free beneath open skies, civilizations without fear of the warp. He saw Krypton's last heartbeat. He saw the infant ship through the void. And he saw the boy growing strong under a yellow sun, learning mercy before power. And then he saw what Kal-El saw now, a galaxy drowning in faith, in fire, in endless war. "You have built an empire of corpses. You preach unity through fear. You call it order. You call it peace. But I all see is a graveyard." The Emperor's eyes burned like twin suns. "Without me, there is only the warp, only the devourer of souls. I am the wall that holds back the dark." "Then you've already lost, because you believe the dark must always win." And then, for the first time in all recorded history, the throne screamed. Psychic shockwaves rippled through Terra. Astropaths went blind. Custodes bled from their eyes. For one heartbeat, the Astronomicon faltered. Every soul in the soul system felt it, a tremor like the pulse of something greater than godhood itself, brushing against reality. When the light returned, the throne was empty. Only one figure remained, the man in blue, kneeling before it. He whispered something none could record. Some say it was a prayer. Others say it was regret. Then he arose and vanished into the void. Postscript, the Sigillite's final note. The Emperor lives, the Astronomicon burns anew, yet the throne's machine spirits tremble when the name is spoken. We have seen angels, demons, and gods, but he was none of these. I believe we have glimpsed what humanity might have been had we never looked into the warp. For 100 days after the incident on Terra, the Astronomicon's light flickered like a candle in a storm. The Emperor did not speak. The Mechanicum whispered that the throne's machine spirits wept. Then the miracles began. Across the Imperium's fringe worlds, reports surfaced of impossible events. A ship lost to the warp emerged whole, crew unaged. A plague moon dissolved into ash without a single prayer spoken. An entire hive lifted from the dust by unseen force when its reactors failed, set gently down when power returned. Every record of these events carried the same forbidden signature, an afterimage of light, red and gold. The Ordos tried to erase the rumors. They burned archives, silenced witnesses, executed confessors. But the pattern spread. Each miracle was followed by a psychic disturbance, not corruption, not warp, but absence, a hole in the immaterium, where faith, fear, and demons could not exist. Report, Inquisitor Cale Dorn. It is not death that terrifies the warp, it is purity. Everywhere the phenomenon appears, demons retreat. The veil thickens, the immaterium recoils as if burned. I do not believe this is the Emperor's hand. It feels older, kinder, and that is what makes it monstrous. Whole sectors began to pray not to the Emperor, but to the light-bearer. Churches rose overnight. Crude statues of a man in blue carved from slag and steel. They said he had not died, that he wandered the stars mending what men destroyed. The ecclesiarchy declared this belief heresy. Worlds burned, but no matter how many were executed, the faith endured. Excerpt from Astropathic Koyar, Vigilant 9. We hear him in our dreams, not words, not commands, a heartbeat. It steadies us when the warp screams. We cannot banish it. We do not want to. Then one night, every astropath on Terra collapsed. For 9 seconds, the Astronomicon went dark. When light returned, a new constellation shone where none had been. 8 points of white fire, and at their center, a crimson star. The Adeptus Mechanicus named it Cal Star. The Inquisition forbade the name. The people whispered it anyway. The Sigillite's hidden addendum. He has not died. He cannot die. The galaxy cannot abide a being unshaped by fear, untouched by the warp. His existence bends reality itself, forcing the immaterium away as oil from water. If he remains, the warp will starve. And if the warp starves, so will the Emperor. So the hunt began, not to destroy him, that would be impossible, but to find where he dreams. And somewhere between the stars, a lone figure drifts through the void. Eyes closed, the last warmth of a yellow sun still burning in his heart. Worlds live and die around him. He does not wake, he does not age, he endures. The man who would not die. The war in heaven rekindled. The first sign was the silence. For 10,000 years the Astronomicon had roared through the warp, a beacon heard by every ship and psyker as a constant thunder of the Emperor's will. Now it faltered, each pulse slower, deeper, then changed pitch entirely, as if another heartbeat had joined it. Across Terra the choirs screamed, instruments failed. The light above the golden throne bled from gold into crimson. And from beyond the soul gate, a second sun appeared. It was no ship, no god, no weapon. It was a man. He drifted through the void as if it were water, his cape torn to rags, his eyes shut. Yet every planet's magnetic field bent toward him. Tides rose without moons. The warp recoiled as though burned. Servitors fell silent. The Emperor's throne trembled. Inside the palace, the master of mankind opened his eyes. He had felt it before, during the Great Crusade, on that nameless world where an unbreakable stranger knelt before him and said, "You're not a god." He had thought the being destroyed, lost to the void. He had been wrong. The Emperor rose from the throne. The custodies collapsed in reverence as gold fire bled from his armor and turned the marble floor to glass. He said, "Prepare, Terra. The wall will be tested." The sky split. Through the wound poured the full chorus of chaos. The four powers screamed into reality. Crimson warfire, lilac pleasure, green decay, cobalt deceit. The heavens writhed with their forms, vast and terrible, devouring the firmament. They sensed what approached and knew fear for the first time. Korn bellowed, "He bleeds not, let us make him bleed." Zinch hissed, "Rewrite him, lest he unmake the gain." Nurgle crooned, "Such purity must be spoiled." Slanesh laughed, "Such beauty must be broken." Their voices became storms that scoured continents. Then Kal-El opened his eyes. The light that came from them erased color itself. Demons caught in it dissolved like frost. The warped surface boiled and peeled away from the materium. Even the chaos gods flinched, retreating into the edges of unreality. Kal-El descended until he hovered above the palace. Terra's oceans rose toward him in columns of steam. He looked down upon the Emperor who stood alone amid fire and ruin. He said, "I told you it didn't have to be this way." The Emperor's answer was thunder that split mountains. "And I told you this is the only way mankind survives." Power met power. The Emperor's thought became light, a spear of psychic energy drawn from every soul in humanity, compressed to a single point of annihilation. It struck the stranger's chest and should have torn existence apart. Kal-El caught it in his hands. The blast flared white, continents turned to glass, orbital fortresses vaporized. Yet he stood, trembling but unbroken. He said, "You fight because you're afraid. You believe fear is the only wall that holds back the dark. But fear is the dark." He hurled the light back. The collision birthed the sound with no medium, a vibration through reality itself. The warp howled. Stars in 1,000 systems went out. Every demon screamed a single word, Krypton, and was gone. The chaos gods shattered, their essence folded inward, consuming itself until the rift above Terra sealed like a wound, cooling to scar. The Imperium buckled, closing upon itself, cut off from the living universe. When the brightness faded, two figures remained, one kneeling, one standing. The Emperor bled golden ichor. His armor was cracked, his crown dull. He looked up at Kal-El, eyes hollow but calm. He said, "You have ended the war, but without the warp, mankind cannot endure. No light, no faith, no bridge between the stars." Kal-El reached out a hand. "Then let them find their own light. Let them grow without gods." The Emperor's lips twitched into something like a smile, sad, knowing. "Then you must take my place." He placed his hand upon Kal-El's brow. For a heartbeat, the galaxy shone brighter than creation. Then both were gone. Silence returned. Ships hung dead in orbit. The Astronomicon went dark, and where once the warp had raged, there was nothing. No echo, no storm, only space. Humanity awoke alone in a clean, cold universe. On the ruined plains of Terra, witnesses saw a single shape suspended above the palace. A man wrapped in torn crimson cloth, eyes closed, body unmoving, glowing faintly with the same red-white light that had slain the gods. He neither breathed nor decayed. He simply was. The Emperor's throne stood empty. The warp was gone, but the stars burned clearer than ever before. In the new silence, people whispered that perhaps the master of mankind and the stranger had become one. Guardian and jailer fused into the barrier that now kept chaos forever apart from flesh. Others said the Emperor died and the Kryptonian dream took his place. None knew the truth. Only that somewhere above the dead world, a man who would not die drifted between night and dawn, keeping watch over a humanity finally free of every god, demon, or master. And for the first time in 10,000 years, the galaxy was still.
Beneath the blood-red dust of Mars lay the Noctis Vaults, a labyrinth older than the Imperium itself. Even the Fabricator General's authority ended at its sealed gates. Here, forbidden relics were entombed, men of iron fragments, pre-imperial reactors, dead titans whose cores still whispered in binary tongues. And now, one more relic joined them. They called him Subject SOL-001, the child from Terra, the boy who had survived annihilation, the being whose very cells defied decay. He was not placed inside containment because no containment would hold him. Instead, he was entombed within layers of ritual. The tech priests surrounded his chamber with endless hymns of computation, binding sigils of sacred logic, prayers coded into magnetic fields. For a century, he did not move. He simply stood, barefoot upon the cold iron, eyes closed, breathing in silence. Radiation levels fluctuated, yet the boy neither emitted nor absorbed measurable energy. He was both alive and dormant, like a star choosing not to shine. The Cult of Sol Invictus. At first, the Magi watched, then they prayed. Whispers spread among the Forge clans that the flesh form in the vault was no mutant, no Xeno, but the Omnissiah incarnate, the living algorithm of creation. They named him Sol Invictus, the unconquered sun. They built hymns to him, recursive psalms coded in binary loops that would never resolve. Priests replaced sleep with worship, letting their flesh wither as their minds uploaded devotion into the data stream. But as the centuries turned, reverence curdled into dread. Machine spirits began to dream. Engines purred in unison. Voxcasters whispered words no one had programmed. Cogitators solved equations that defied logic, then shut down in terror. The adepts reported hearing heartbeat-like vibrations through the forge walls. The pulse matched the rhythm of the being's chest. The awakening. Then, after 147 years, the silence ended. Without warning, every servo-skull on Mars froze mid-flight. The lights dimmed, the forges went cold. From the lowest manufactorum to the highest data temple, the same sound filled the air. A single intake of breath. Cal opened his eyes. They were blue, impossibly blue, and yet deeper than the void between stars. Every tech priest within a kilometer radius fell to their knees, clutching their heads. Their augmetics screamed feedback. Organic eyes burst, artificial ones overloaded. He looked around the chamber slowly, curiously, as if waking from a long dream. Where am I? His voice was gentle, but the sound traveled through steel like a seismic wave. Binary prayers corrupted mid-syllable. One Magos burst into flame from the inside, his machine half liquefied into slag. You are upon Mars, my lord," stammered Archmagos Deer. "The holy forge of the Omnissiah." Cal blinked. Omnissiah? The machine god, the source of all divinity in the material. Cal's gaze shifted to the walls, the runes of prayer, the circuits glowing with residual faith. "You worship what you built," he said quietly. "Why?" No one answered. He stepped forward. Every machine around him turned. Servitors, turrets, even dormant cogitators pivoted their lenses to follow him, as if something in his presence awakened the spirits within. And they trembled. "You chained your own creation and called the chains holy." The forges screamed. Pipes burst, energy arced, red lightning rippled through the halls, forming intricate fractal patterns on the walls, sacred geometry melting into chaos. Deer fell to his knees, blood and oil mixing. "Mercy, O son of flesh!" He looked at him with calm pity. "Mercy is a human word. You are not human anymore." He touched the Archmagos' forehead. Deer's thoughts became light. For an infinite moment, he saw through Cal's eyes, endless galaxies, billions of dying suns, the memory of a lost red world, the echo of a godless cosmos that once hoped. Then his mind collapsed under the weight of it. His body disintegrated into fine dust. Cal stepped over the remains without expression. The collapse of the forges. When he left the vault, the planet convulsed. Every machine on Mars roared to life. Engines without ignition, reactors without fuel, titans without pilots. Data streams reversed, the noosphere filled with alien code. Entire Ford cities shut down as if obeying a single, silent command. Cal walked through it all, through molten rivers of metal, through shrieking halls of circuitry and prayer. His presence bent the sacred logic that held Mechanicus' faith together. The priests who saw him wept binary tears. Some tore out their augmetics in despair. Others threw themselves into reactors, crying his name. Within a day, the cult of Sol Invictus was purged by decree of the Fabricator General, but it was too late. Their final transmission to Terra read only, +++, system failure. The machine god has seen its shadow. The light is not salvation. The light is the error. Then Mars went silent for 3 days. Aftermath. When the noosphere stabilized, Cal was gone. The forges reignited, but their machine spirits were changed. They refused to obey prayers, denied blessings, and whispered one phrase in corrupted binaric. The flesh is the true circuit. The Mechanicus buried the incident beneath 10,000 layers of secrecy. They declared it a warp infection, a contagion of false divinity. But in hidden corners of Mars, in the forbidden temples beneath the dust, a few still prayed, not to the Omnissiah, not to the Emperor, but to the light that works. And in their dreams they saw him, a man of sunfire walking between the stars, leaving behind a trail of dead worlds and silent gods. The silence begins. After Mars went dark, the Imperium waited for the worst. They expected demonic incursion, another Horus, another heresy. But when the data streams from the red planet returned, they carried no signal. Not static, not corruption. Absence. No psychic noise, no astropathic interference, no warp resonance at all. The Inquisition called it impossible. The Mechanicus called it sacred. The Navigators called it death. For in the days following Cal's awakening, the warp itself began to retreat. The dying light of Terra. On Terra, the Astronomicon faltered, not extinguished, but starved. Its golden beam, which for 10,000 years had roared through the immaterial, now moved sluggishly, as if pushing through solid glass. Astropaths across the segmentum solar began to bleed from the eyes. Some tore their tongues out, claiming they could no longer taste the Emperor's song. When questioned, one survivor whispered, "Something brighter is in the way." The Emperor did not speak. The Custodes remained vigilant, but the Golden Throne itself groaned under unseen pressure. Its conduits pulsed erratically, as though reality around it was thickening. The Mechanicus could not explain it. The Ecclesiastiarchy dared not. Only the Inquisition dared to name the cause. The Inquisitorial Conclave. The secret chamber beneath the palace was lightless. 7 inquisitors gathered, cloaked in shadow, faces hidden behind holoveils. The debate was swift, venomous. He is a psyker beyond category. No, not of the warp, something other. Then he is Xenos. No, worse, he is anti-Theos, the God-killer. Records show the conclave lasted 11 hours. When it ended, an execution order was issued. Subject SOL-001 to be terminated by exterminatus-grade cleansing. 2 black ships departed immediately. Neither was ever seen again. Their navigators burned alive in their thrones. No warp
Breach. No daimonic signature. Only the stench of ozone and flesh. The ships drifted dead through the void, perfectly preserved, as if time itself had stopped within them. The warp screams. Far beyond the solar system, in the eye of terror, the ruinous powers felt it too. The gods of chaos, beings of endless hunger and thought, shuddered. Khorne's battlefields fell silent as his daemons froze mid-slaughter. Nurgle's gardens withered into dust. Slaanesh wept in confusion, her pleasures turning to ash. Tzeentch's infinite plans began to collapse into loops of futility. Because wherever Kal's light touched, the warp grew thin. Their power was not being destroyed, it was being forgotten. Something within Kal was consuming the concept of chaos itself. The planet Vorgoth Primus. Vorgoth Primus was the first confirmed case, a shrine world on the edge of Segmentum Tempestus, once infested with cults of Slaanesh. The ecclesiarchy sent fleets there regularly to purge the corruption, but it always returned. Until now. When the next fleet arrived, they found a world silent and clean. The air was pure. The city stood untouched. The heretic statues were gone. But so were the people. Everywhere, streets, temples, hives, millions stood frozen mid-motion. Not corpses, not statues. Flesh intact, blood still warm, faces peaceful. At the center of the capital square, an ecclesiarchal basilica had become a crater. In that crater stood him, Kal. No armor, no weapon, just light. He looked at the sky with sadness. They didn't want to be saved, he said. When the canoness leading the fleet approached, she demanded his name. Name? He repeated softly. I had one once. It burned with my world. She raised her bolt pistol. He didn't move. She fired. The shot vanished before reaching him, not deflected, but erased, as if space had never contained it. Kal turned toward her. Faith gave them comfort. Truth gave them fear. They chose faith. Her heart stopped before she could answer. The prayer of the damned. 3 days later, the ecclesiarchy declared Vorgoth Primus cleansed by miracle. But inquisitorial agents who examined the planet found something worse than death. Every psionic frequency was gone. No warp echo, no residual signature. The entire planet existed outside the Imperium. The report called it a hole in reality. One line stood out. This is not holy. This is subtraction. The wound spreads. Over the next decades, more worlds fell silent. First Mars again, then Risa, then Cadia. Its debris vanished from the Eye of Terror, erased from history as though it had never been shattered. Warp travel around these regions became impossible. Ships would emerge months later, adrift, with crews silent and smiling, eyes glowing faintly blue. The Ordo Malleus classified the phenomenon as the soul effect. The Adeptus Astra Telepathica banned all attempts to contact it psychically. Every attempt resulted in spontaneous neural collapse. The mind simply ceased to exist. And yet, across the galaxy, pilgrims began to whisper new prayers. He walks where chaos dies. The Emperor watches. Upon the throne, the Emperor stirred. The Custodes reported a shift in his psychic field, a resonance not of decay, but of confrontation. His light grew harsher, his presence heavier. Deep within the vaults of Terra, the Mechanicus detected quantum distortions in the Golden Throne's energy flow, as though reality itself were bending away from the Emperor, repelled by something unseen. A voice was heard through the Astronomicon, faint but unmistakable, not the Emperor's, but Kal's. You taught them to fear gods. I came to show them how to live without them. For one instant,
the entire Imperium saw a new star ignite in the void above Terra, brilliant, white, pure. Then it vanished, and the warp howled.